Hello and welcome to Popcorn Mumbles, where we dig into the back catalog to select a film or television show to rewatch. I'm Cody Nestor. He's Todd Hill.
Hello, everyone.
This week we've chosen the 2017 film War for the Planet of the Apes. Caesar and his apes are forced into a deadly conflict with an army of humans led by a ruthless colonel. After the apes suffer unimaginable losses, Caesar wrestles with his darker instincts and begins his own mythic quest to avenge his kind. As the journey finally brings them face to face, Caesar and the colonel are pitted against each other in an epic battle that will determine the fate of both their species and the future of the planet. War for the Planet of the Apes was released on July 14, 2017. On a budget of $152 million, it made $489 million, has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 94% and an audience score of 84%. So, Todd, let's discuss War for the Planet of the Apes. Spoilers are ahead.
All right.
So, Todd, here we are, our final ape-verse, our final movie in the, it's the Rupert Wyatt / Matt Reeves Apes trilogy.
Yep.
High-level stuff. What did you think?
I got to agree. We've watched these three, I think it's over the period of 3 weeks now, and ending with this one, I got to admit, I think this is one of the better trilogies we've got.
Yeah, I think it's super underrated, honestly. Like, I think, like, when you look back at, like, the best kind of modern day, especially trilogies, like, a trilogy of the 2010s and, to current, like, this is such an underrated trilogy. Like, it's really been, like, a good experience going back to these films because, like, I'd seen Rise like maybe once or twice, once in the theaters, once on home video. I've seen Dawn maybe a couple times. I think I only watched War the once, and I think War. Actually, I think I did watch it one time on like home video, but coming back to the series, it's just been like kind of a joy to do, and like I'm gonna miss these films. I'm hoping now, like my hype level for this, like watching these films and how good they were, my hype level for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which is coming out soon, is kind of rising, and I hope I'm not putting too much on that movie already because it has a lot to kind of live up
to. Yeah,
yeah, for sure. So let's go ahead and jump right into the story here. So. The opening of our film, we kind of get a recap of the previous two films. We kind of get it highlighting the words Rise, Dawn, and now War. In the kind of the text background we get, it says the humans sent a distress call to a military base in the north where all that remained of the U.S. Army was gathered. A ruthless Special Forces colonel and his hardened battalion were dispatched to exterminate the apes. Evading capture for the last 2 years, Caesar is now rumored to be marshaling the fight from a hidden command base in the woods as the war rages on. So for me, again, we have like another fantastic like opening scene. Like all these films, especially Dawn and now War, like all of them have had really great opening scenes. This is the third film that we've had in a row. Like if you noticed, all of them open with like some type of hunt in the forest.
True.
In the first one, it's open. It's poachers hunting and capturing apes. In Dawn, it's the apes kind of hunting some game. And now you open with it's the Alpha Omega human militia. They're kind of open with them hunting the apes.
Right.
But like this opening scene is like fantastic. Like you get some great world building here. Like you get the writing on the soldiers' helmets.
Oh yeah, the kind of anti-war propaganda type stuff.
Yeah, one of them has monkey killer written on his helmet. One of them has bedtime for Bonzo.
Yeah.
One of them says endangered species. But yeah, just like great world building, like which is a big part of these last two films. We set up the donkeys. You want to tell us what the donkeys are, Todd?
Oh man, so the donkeys are basically they're apes. They're apes or chimps, but
gorillas,
they are gorillas. But they are they've defected from their kind and they are sided with the humans. They are helping mankind.
Yeah, it says donkeys are apes who are loyal to Koba, who have defected to the humans and now help hunt their own kind. And we're introduced to the kind of the main, one of the main donkeys here. His name is Red. And he's kind of present in the open scene. He has like an Alpha Omega brand on his head, for the Alpha Omega militia.
Right.
He's got the word donkey written on his back. And they're really treated like donkeys. They're really they just have Red just carrying their shit. It's like, come over here. It's like a pack animal.
Yeah.
It's really what they are. We're kind of introduced to a character named Preacher. He's kind of given some setup here. His setup really, it's not a lot. It's just he's a soldier who's good with a crossbow.
Yeah.
That's
he's deadly with a crossbow.
Yeah, that's kind of his setup. But he's what kind of pulls us into the story and kind of the human character that the kind of narrative focuses on for this opening kind of forest scene. But the humans end up, they kind of spot some apes up ahead. They end up engaging the apes on the hill. At first, it's like an ape slaughter. I mean, like
Yeah.
they're really not holding well
Mm-mm.
until the kind of ape cavalry kind of arrives and turns like the tide of battle a little bit. So the apes kind of raining down arrows like on the humans. All that stuff is great stuff. Like it's not a long fight, but it's like it's just enough to kind of again to continue to build the world,
Yeah.
to set up the stakes, tell us what's going on. All the humans except Preacher at first we think are killed, like everybody but him. But eventually we see that it's Preacher, three randos, and Red the donkey. That's our surviving
Yeah.
human side of things. Caesar's introduction, I thought, again here, it's a great introduction in Dawn, but his introduction here in War is great. It's like his POV walking through like a sea of like it's like dead apes, injured
Yeah.
apes, and the apes, kind of offering their hand up
Mm-hmm.
to him, just like his POV walking through, and you kind of see him for the first time. It's like he's now visibly older, like he's got a lot of gray in the
Oh,
fur. And I was wondering, I don't really think. Obviously, it's a few years after Dawn. Like it's not like I don't think it's a big jump as like from Rise to Dawn was like 10 years.
Yeah.
This feels like 3, 4 maybe. Something like that. I wonder though, like, is that Caesar actually aging, or is he just like aging like a U.S. president?
Right.
You know what I mean?
All that's on him, all the responsibility, the weight of this war,
Yeah.
and trying to be the help of his people.
Does he just look prematurely aged because
Yes.
of that? Is he pulling like an Obama? Like, where, Obama like a healthy, young, vibrant man, and then 8 years later,
Time he leaves office, he's practically almost dead looking.
yeah, he looked like the crypt keeper. Yeah, exactly. There's a part where Caesar first goes up and like looks at the kind of the group of the survivors, and that look of disdain he has on his face looking at Red the donkey. It's just
Oh,
just a
yeah.
great little moment. Maurice is there. He tells him that there's 63 apes that were dead. And then we get a little backstory, a little exposition where preachers tell Caesar they've been searching for him on order from the colonel. And Caesar tells them that he didn't start this war. The ape who did is dead. His name was Koba. I killed him. Now I only fight to protect apes. And then again, we see kind of that evolution of Caesar. Now in war, I love how he's kind of speaking English like fluently and like with ease now. Like he really hardly ever signs unless he has to.
Yeah.
Like he's really like completely almost verbal now.
Yeah.
He just does it with ease. And like you're kind of continuing to see how he's like evolving.
Yeah.
And he's like kind of talking about Red the donkey. He says they fear what I'll do to them, so now they serve you just to survive. And then Red kind of pipes up and like he can talk as well, and he's like, I don't fear you. And then he tells him he talks talking about like the humans and how like they have their Kurna, and like I always watch them with subtitles on, but like like the way it's like it's not Colonel, they say it's like Kurna, like Kerna.
Uh-huh.
It's like their Kurna. He's more than just human, he's everything. And that kind of mirrors kind of what you see with Caesar, like their colonel, this like alpha omega militia, like their Kurna is like he's everything to them, just kind of like how Caesar is.
Everything to the apes.
Everything to the apes, exactly. So Caesar, he also has two of his own guerrilla bodyguards. He's got Luca, who's kind of like our kind of typical normal like black kind of gorilla, and then he has a albino fuck named Winter, which we'll talk about. And then they tell Caesar tells Winter to kind of take Red outside, which he does. Caesar decides to let the humans go so they can deliver a message to the colonel. The message is leave the woods and the killing can stop. Like Caesar's still kind of striving for peace among them, just wants to be left alone in the woods with his kind, and that be it. And then we see Winter. He comes running his ass up there. He's like bleeding from the head. He says Red attacked him and got away.
Yeah.
What a lying piece of shit. Well, more about Winter to come if you can't tell. Before we go back to the Apes home base, though, just want to mention the scene by the river. Like there's that scene and like all the apes are kind of gathered around the river, and if you notice, they're like casting the bodies of like
Down the river.
yeah, the fallen apes into the river, and it looks like they're doing like a little like ceremony even before they kind of send them away. Like it's just like another example of like, especially Dawn and War with like the world building is just you don't. Probably a lot of times you don't even get that scene. You just go straight back to the apes home base. But here you just get a little scene. You get Maurice and Caesar kind of talking, and you see like them like kind of giving their dead to the river and kind of doing this little ceremony.
Right.
And it's like it just adds to the world and how much you do end up kind of caring about these characters.
Exactly.
Caesar and everyone kind of returns home, followed shortly after by his son Blue Eyes. and Rocket, they kind of were out, I guess, scouting for a new place, a new home for the
Yeah,
apes.
they're trying to move on, get out of the
Yeah,
woods.
they need another place to go. The humans are very close at this point.
Yeah.
They're knocking on the door where the apes actually are. We end up for the first time we meet Blue Eyes' chosen mate. Her name is Lake for the first time,
Yeah.
and we see Caesar's youngest son Cornelius. He's grown up a bit as well. That's why I feel like it's like maybe 2, 3, 4 years, something like that, because
In
he
that
was
neighborhood,
just
yeah.
born in Dawn, and now he's like kind of in that infant toddler
Stage.
stage or whatever. All these reunions are short lived though, as a human strike team led by the Colonel kind of descends upon them. So you want to take us through the assassination attempt here, Ton?
Yeah, so Caesar's kind of there in the cave at night. I think they're trying to sleep, and he sees some kind of green light shining through the waterfall, and it's of course the lights off of night vision scopes. He kind of wakes up and runs up on one of his guards, trying to find out who I was on patrol. I think they says about 6 of them, five
Yeah,
or six
5 or
of them.
6
Yeah.
of them. Yeah.
And so he goes back to his bedroom or his part of the cavern and runs up on the colonel. The colonel
Yeah.
was in there.
Yeah, that shot of them like kind of meeting each other's gaze is like the Colonel kind of turns around and they see each other for the first time, because I think the Colonel believes they're kind of getting ready to get out of there, and the Colonel kind of believes that he's killed Caesar by
Yeah.
killing Blue Eyes, but it's obviously not Caesar, it's his son. So yes, unfortunately, he's killed his son Blue Eyes. He's also killed his wife Cornelia, and we don't know at this point what the status of Cornelius is, but obviously Caesar
He is unhinged.
He-
He is angry to say the least.
exactly. Yeah, he takes off after the Colonel. There's a little bit of a kind of a scene there. She's kind of like trailing him up the rope. The Colonel ends up like kind of cutting the rope, and he drops down into the falls. And kind of go back and kind of see the aftermath. Luca comes up to him to kind of tells him that they think Winter's kind of betrayed them. They can't find
They
Winter.
can't find him.
Fucker. They can't find Winter, and he's kind of betrayed them. And we do find out that Cornelius is safe, though. He kind of comes out of his little
Yeah, he was hiding.
his little hiding spot. And at this point, it's about what to do next. And all the other apes, they're going to kind of mount up and group up, and they're going to go kind of try to seek their new home. That Blue Eyes and Rocket had mentioned, he kind of found like a desert kind of area for them to
Right.
kind of stay in. So the rest of the apes are going to their new home. But Caesar chooses, he wants revenge for his family. He wants the Colonel dead. So he wants to set out to do that by himself. But of course, Maurice, Luca, Rocket, they can't let him go alone.
They ain't gonna let him go alone.
Yeah, so they join up with him. So skipping ahead a little bit, Todd. So you want to tell us about the little girl that Caesar's group finds, and then tell us about the human camp where we find Winter after that. Take us
So
through
they
those.
kind of come up on a sort of a small little village, like a little house, and they run up on a human, and he's about to get the drop on him. I think it was Caesar who comes out with a gun and shoots him.
Yeah, blast him with a shotgun.
Yeah.
Yeah, as he's like putting down some firewood
Yeah,
or
because
something.
he's getting ready to shoot the apes, but Caesar takes him out first. Then he kind of start going through the cabin, got this kind of scrounge what they can get supplies wise, and they come up on a little girl in a bed, and she's kind of got some blood around her nose, and she has the inability to speak. She cannot speak anything vocally.
Yeah, so this kind of sets up a little like what's going on with this
Mm-hmm.
character. She's nonverbal. She seems like she tries to speak but can't. Again, you mentioned like the blood around her nose. She's carrying this little doll around with her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That person was the only other person there with her, the guy that Caesar, blew in half with a shotgun. So
Yeah.
Maurice is like she'll die out here on her own if she's alone. So he doesn't want to leave her. So they kind of allow her to kind of
They join the posse. She
Yeah.
joins the posse.
posse, yeah. And then looking for the humans, they catch up to like an encampment of humans, and that's where they're using some binoculars to spot Winter.
Yeah.
What happens there with the Winter?
They kind of sneak inside where he's at and get the drop on him, and he kind of gives up the info that they're getting ready to head out of that camp, and they're going to meet up with some other soldiers at a border, someplace called the border. And there's some humans outside, and I think Winter's getting ready to alert them, and they kind of grab him by the mouth, and I think they wind up suffocating the old boy to death.
Yeah, I think like Caesar,
Yeah.
he tells them that he does reveal Winter tells them that Red promised them the Colonel would spare his life if he told him where they were hiding.
Yeah, so
he-
Winter gave him up.
Yeah, he gave him up, and like there's a part where he tells Winter before they like start choking him out. They like Caesar tells him like that they killed his wife and his son, and like that. The look on Caesar's face is great, but it's also like how Winter, 'cause he's kind of like putting his hand out already. And he's like, they killed my wife and son, and there's that moment where Winter's like, oh fuck, oh fuck,
Yeah.
that's what he's thinking in his
Yeah.
head is like, oh, I'm fucking dead.
Caesar's going to kill me for sure.
Yeah, but like you said, the humans outside to keep him from making noise and like alerting them. Luca and Maurice and Rocket kind of pin him down, and Caesar gets him from behind in like a headlock and ends up choking him to death.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, good riddance.
Yeah, he had it coming.
But this is another point. This would be, I guess, the second ape Caesar's had to kill
Yeah.
after Koba.
After Koba, yeah.
And I mean, Koba gave him a reason. This guy gave him a reason too. But yeah, in the context of the scene, it's like you can kind of see it either way. Did Caesar mean to? Did he not? Like, there's so much like anger in him right now.
Yeah.
Like, did he just kind of subconsciously, once he got his hands on him, like couldn't stop himself.
Couldn't stop himself.
Yeah. So, but it's just like, again, it's a great scene. And
Yeah.
here's a point that I wanted to make. What I love about Dawn and War, especially, I don't hate on Rise. Like, again, we've reviewed it, and it's fine. It's good.
Good start.
But it's not on this level.
No.
It's not on the level of Dawn and War. And like, again, what we talked about before when we talked about Dawn is like Matt Reeves, like, he treats it with such respect, but like he puts the apes in he puts them in like real scenes and real scenarios.
Yeah.
Like, like that you see in other types of film. They're not like creating scenes for like digital apes to be in. They're creating scenes that happen to have digital apes in them.
Yeah, it's something that would be set up and written for a real actor, not just something that, here's going to be a CGI dummy in this spot. There'll be a CGI dummy in this spot,
Yeah, like you're treating the universe and the characters with respect. And like that scene with Winter, you could easily put that in any other action film or drama or a period piece or something. And it worked just as well. And like, arguably here, I think it maybe even works better because like we care about these characters so much and we've been invested in them and with them for like 3 films.
Right.
And like it works despite them being CGI apes. And also, aside from Caesar, all the rest of them are nonverbal, and it still works. Like they're just using sign language.
Yeah.
But like that's the thing that really like when you kind of I sit back and look at these films, it's not like tailor-made specific instances created for CGI ape scenes.
Right.
It's like real scenes, like
Yeah.
from a real film, and it
Yeah.
treats this like a real film. It doesn't treat it like a hokey sci-fi premise. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
He always treated it with the respect that I thought it deserved. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, and that's just, I think that's what elevates these two films kind of so much here. Before we get into our next character introduction, I just want to mention there's a couple times throughout the film where Caesar kind of ends up dreaming about Koba, which I thought was
Yeah,
great.
those cool scenes.
Yeah, just a reminder of, what's kind of happened. And like, again, I guess it's a reminder to try to not fall to the dark side like Koba did.
Right.
And not be consumed by the anger and revenge. On the journey though, before we get to our next character introduction, the apes end up finding the bodies of soldiers who'd they'd been bound, they had their heads bagged, and they'd been shot. Caesar finds one of them is still alive. He takes kind of the bag off his head, and he finds that he's also bleeding from the nose and cannot speak.
Cannot verbally communicate.
Just like
yeah.
the little girl that they'd recently found. So we know something's going on. By now, you're starting to figure like something's going on, probably virus-wise. These people are probably sick, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But Todd, we get another character introduced. You want to tell us about Bad Ape?
This is a character that I had completely forgot was in this movie.
I did too. I was watching it and I was like, because they not to take away from your setup, but like the character or a character in like a big jacket,
Yeah.
like steals their horse and like steals some stuff from them and takes off with one of their horses. And I'm like, who is this? It looks like a woman kind
Yeah.
of from the silhouette because it's a
Yeah.
very slender kind of silhouette. And I'm like, I don't remember another human character in this movie, and I damn sure didn't remember the character we actually got. So take us through what's going on here.
Yeah, so as you said, they were kind of looking at some stuff off in the distance. They were up high, and while they're down there, this character steals one of their horses, rides off. I think he stole one that had a shotgun on it, and they kind of chase him back to this place where this character was staying. And coming to find out, it's another little chimpanzee. And we'll just refer to him as Bad Ape.
That's what he called himself.
Was a bad ape, yeah.
Yeah, that's coming from like kind of his kind of tragic backstory. Like, I forgot this character, but I love this character.
Yeah.
Like he's Bad Ape is another like tragic character, and Overall, he injects some like levity
Yeah,
into
he's a
the
little bit of
film.
a little levity character.
And you kind of need that here. You need a little bit of it because with this film, it can get dour real quick.
Yeah,
Like it's a very serious like movie, and it's like there's a lot of suffering and loss and the
exactly.
grief, and like he injects just enough levity that it's never like eye rolling or like oh come on or like
Yeah,
stop it
he
like
doesn't overstay his welcome,
yeah
and he's
exactly
just light enough.
absolutely and like we see that they're kind of all gathered around. We see that Bad Ape is very protective of his things.
Oh
The
yeah,
little girl keeps like picking something
he's
up.
like, no, that's
No,
mine.
no, no
No,
touch.
no touch.
Yeah, put that down. Like he does it like multiple times.
Yeah.
He's like, that's mine. We see just to kind of set that up. She's picking up a decal that says Nova. Like it's actually off of like a Chevy Nova,
Right.
like a decal off of a car. She has that, which we'll come back to in a little bit. But yeah, this is a Bad Ape. He's played by Steve Zahn, so like people will kind of be familiar with some of his work as well. But his kind of backstory, he was a chimpanzee who managed to kind of flee from the Sierra Safari Zoo. He kind of shows
Yeah.
Caesar kind of a little like a toy or something from the zoo, and he kind of saw his family, and he and some acquaintances of his, they kind of got blamed for the simian flu that was going around,
Right.
and they kind of his family and the rest of the people around him were kind of killed by those soldiers. So he again kind of has a little bit of a tragic backstory here as well. Him and Caesar kind of shares what happened to him and his family, and because Bad Ape is very hesitant about taking him to the border.
Yeah, he doesn't want to take him there. He's like, bad place. We
Yeah.
no go there.
And I think he calls it a human zoo, like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
little base at the border. But him and Caesar kind of bond a little bit and kind of figure out they both have like a kind of a tragic backstory. So he agrees to kind of take him to that human zoo at the border, we'll call it. Another before we go move on past this scene too much, before they go, a great little moment where we get outside with Luca and the little girl.
Oh yeah, with the flower.
Yeah, Luca takes the flower off of the tree and kind of pins it in her hair, behind her ear, and then of course in the next scene he gets stabbed by a bayonet and dies.
Wow.
Yeah.
A touching moment followed by a heart-wrenching death.
Yeah. And then before he dies, she's like very tore up by it, and she kind of kneels down and she pins the flower back behind his ear. Just again, great little moment.
Yeah, and there's a great little a shot of Caesar while that's going on. He's kind of looking at her, and he's almost kind of dumbfounded in a way about this little human girl is so emotional.
Why does she care?
Why does she even care?
Yeah, about an ape dying.
Yeah.
What does it mean to her? Yeah.
It's just a great look on his face.
It
He
is.
just- yeah.
It is for sure. At that point, Maurice kind of begs Caesar to like, let's just go join the other apes. This is not.
Let's give this up.
Yeah, let's give this up. Let's go get with the other apes. And Caesar, he's like, they must pay. And Rocket's kind of on his side of like, Luca died for nothing if we go back now.
Yeah.
And that's where Maurice says to him like, now Caesar sounds like Koba. And that's kind of like that's a no go with
Yeah.
Caesar as he kind of trots off by himself. And as he kind of goes forward alone, he finds Caesar learns that the rest of the apes did not make it to their new home. They were all captured. They're kind of being held in the human camp. You got adults in one cage, children in another. Along the way, you've also got some apes that kind of been strung up and kind of left to die on that like little icy path
Right.
that they have. And then Caesar kind of frees one of them. He kind of learns about the attack and that the colonel wanted them alive and he wanted to use them before he killed them. And shit gets heavy.
It gets heavy in a hurry.
Yeah, like it gets pretty dark because, like, the things these apes are going through, the way they're depicted, and like
they've not been. I think one of them says they haven't had anything to eat or drink since they got there.
yeah, and even the ones that kind of strung up, the way it looks, and it's like emaciated,
Almost
and,
crucified in a way.
yeah, like it's it's a very kind of crucifix kind of pose there. The kind of the suffering you kind of get depicted here. It's pretty harrowing for again CGI apes.
Yeah.
Damn, like it gets pretty heavy, gets pretty dark. During all this, sadly Caesar ends up getting caught, and he kind of not first time, but he comes face to face again with the colonel.
Yes.
So Todd, here's where we've got the colonel's character, the character of Colonel J. Wesley McCullough, played by Woody Harrelson. What do you think about the character, and then also what do you think about Woody Harrelson's performance as the character?
I think the character of the Colonel, I don't know if this was intentional, but he reminds me an awful lot of Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, I can see. I
There's some
didn't.
similarities there.
Yeah, I think there's some stuff that's kind of evocative of that too. Yeah, and also imagery. He's also a bald guy, and like
Yeah.
it's a little bit of that as well. I could see that.
And there's actually a little scene where they discover those tunnels underneath where somebody has wrote on the wall. It actually says "Ape Apocalypse" now.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
So I'm like, is Matt Reeves kind of, sort of?
yeah. I didn't really put
Yeah.
those as much together, but I think you're right. Yeah,
He's very reminiscent of that character. And as far as Woody Harrelson as an actor, I've seen him in some stuff I really liked. I've seen him in some stuff I didn't really care for. I think he's pretty good here, actually.
yeah. I don't have a problem with the character. I do think it is a weaker character in
Kind of
some
maybe
aspects.
almost one-dimensional in a way.
Yeah, it's a little more one note, and it's like kind of like we talked about with Gary Oldman last time. Because I kind of praised that character because he seemed more like a guy just living in a situation.
Yeah.
He didn't seem like a bad guy. And we'll talk about Woody Harrelson's motivation here, but it is a little one note. It is a little
Yeah.
like we just need a big bad, but like it's a minor. But like,
Yeah.
could you flesh that character out a little bit more, perhaps? But
Yeah.
like, I don't think it's a bad character. I don't think it's a bad performance. I think you do need something like that. You obviously need some kind of opposition in the film to Caesar and to the apes. So
Yeah.
like I think it serves that. And Woody Harrelson I think is fine. Like I said, yeah, he's done some good stuff. He's done some not so good stuff. I think a lot of times like he still gets kind of put in that camp of like, he's kind of a comedy actor.
True. Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to look at him not as Woody from Cheers.
Right.
Or you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But like he's done some really great work. He did, True Detective and all that stuff. Like he's done some really great work and can be an actor. I think, to use that kind of analogy that he's kind of like a Colonel Kurtz kind of character from Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
Like he maybe evokes that a little bit, but he's nowhere near as interesting as Colonel Kurtz was.
Right. Yeah.
He's not like talking to Caesar like, yeah, grocery clerk, just come to collect the bill, Caesar. That kind of stuff.
Yeah. Nothing quite that far.
Yeah,
out there.
nothing kind of that stuff. But like, it's not bad. It's just I think it is a little bit weaker than what we've seen a little bit before, but like not terribly.
Yeah.
So I think it's a serviceable character, and I think he does well enough with what kind of he's kind of given here. So really, the last kind of the latter half of this film, probably the last hour or so, takes place in and around this camp. We'll kind of tag team through this, but you want to kind of take us through some of what's the goings on at the camp?
So basically, like I say, Caesar's been captured now. He's in with the adult apes. The kids are in their own little cage, and the adults are being forced to work every day. They're building a wall, and at first, why are we building a wall? Why are the humans constructing a wall?
Is Mexico paying for it? Sorry.
And there's a great scene where that one orangutan kind of gives up and drops something and almost fucks something up, and he gets whipped by one of the donkeys, and then Caesar's like, "Leave him alone," and then Caesar of course has to take his licks from the lash. And
yeah, there's a lot of Caesar being tortured. Kind of withheld food, withheld water. They're withholding food and water from all the apes. That's kind of what Caesar's kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of positioning for is to kind of get them food and water so that they can continue to.
Yeah.
If he's going to have them build a wall, you can't do it when all the apes are dead and they're starving to death and dying of thirst.
Yeah, a healthy ape that's got something to eat and drink in his belly is going to be able to lift a little bit more than someone that's starving to death. So.
Right. Through some conversations with the colonel, Caesar kind of deduces that they're building the wall and kind of barricading that facility to not receive these new soldiers like, hey, welcome to our home. It's because those soldiers are coming there to destroy them.
Yeah.
And the kind of the backstory and the reveals there. So the colonel tells Caesar, he reveals to him that the simian flu virus, it's mutated. It's causing infected humans to kind of mentally devolve into those primitive, kind of a primitive version of themselves, kind of like the little girl we see, the guy that we met on the road that was shot. They can't speak. They're devolving into more of a primitive, more ape-like, if you will.
Right.
He also tells Caesar, the colonel does, his son was infected by the virus. He had to end up killing his own son once he was kind of succumbed to the virus. And this gave him the ability to tell his own troops that, if I can sacrifice my own son, if I can kill the closest person to me, you can also make the sacrifice to kill your friends and anybody infected and burn all their belongings and make sure that we kind of, this is what it takes in this world now to like crush this virus. We can't half measure it. And that's what that's why he's diametrically opposed to these other soldiers that are coming in, because he feels like they're half-assing the approach. They're taking half measures where
Yeah.
he's the only one that's willing. Him and his men are willing to take the necessary steps to eradicate this virus, and that
Yeah.
means having to kill your friends or your son or the person that
So
you
be it,
love.
yeah.
So be it. So that's kind of his character's kind of motivation, kind of backstory. Um, in the background of this, we still have Maurice and Rocket, and the little girl. They're still trying to find, and Bad Ape, I should mention. They're trying to find a way to help the humans. They've kind of discovered these like underground kind of tunnel
Kind of
systems.
by accident, I think they fall through. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like not tunnels that's used by the soldiers. I think it was used by the people that were at that location or facility before, like
Right.
when things were going down. It's not really tunnels that the soldiers really know about. Like you said, there's that writing on the wall down there. It's like there's like directions of which way to go, kind of thing. They kind of at the one point it's like nightfall, and this is again we're well into Caesar's torture, and we see the little girl. She kind of sneaks into the facility. She's kind of had enough. I guess you would say. She sneaks into the facility and starts to kind of feed Caesar and give him some water, and also feed the other apes and take that over to them as well. And this is where kind of she's almost about to be discovered until Rocket kind of distracts them, kind of turns himself in to kind of prevent her from being seen. And so that helps them kind of once Rocket is there, he works with Caesar to kind of formulate a plan to kind of escape.
And one key thing she does is she leaves her little doll in the cage with Caesar.
Yes, we definitely need to mention that. Yes, she leaves behind the little doll she's been carrying around that she was found with. It's dirty little nasty doll. It's got some blood spots on it. Like it's she leaves that behind in Caesar's cell. But yeah, the plan is basically you got to get the kids out. They start when Caesar's kind of on his work details. He's kind of like the Maurice and them. They have binoculars. They're kind of seeing Caesar. He's relaying message from other apes, like it's 37 steps to the adult cage,
right?
And it's 50 some steps to the children's cage, and all this kind of stuff. And they're planning it of how they're going to kind of work out and escape everywhere. Meanwhile, underneath, they're having like Bad Ape. He's like digging holes to pop up. He's like that little part where he pops his little head up. Like it's funny. It's cute. Like
but it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's just a little bit of levity where you kind of maybe need it a little bit, right?
Yeah,
there.
it never really feels out of place or anything. Like you just see him little popping his little head up, and that other one looking at him, and then like trying to be nonchalant about it, and like trying to get the guard not to look at him. Like it's just again, it's kind of can be a dour movie, so you need a little bit of that. So the plan eventually goes through. They decide to move on the plan. Once they kind of get Caesar out, Caesar and Rocket kind of go and let the children out. They want them to escape above because that tunnel below is starting to kind of fill and flood.
Right, fill them with water.
Yeah, so they get the children out. They kind of have them like climbing above the human zoo there, so to speak, and they kind of get the children out. The adult apes escape down the little Bad Ape hole, go down through there, and they get out on that through the underground tunnels. And this is again where Caesar is kind of presented with a choice here. He can go with the other apes and try to again go with them to find freedom, or he can go for revenge. He chooses to go for revenge. You want to take us through what happens when he gets back into the Colonel's cabin?
So Caesar makes his way up to the Colonel's cabin, and at first it's kind of, you don't really see anything of her. The lights are off. It's kind of disheveled looking.
This is where it really becomes like Colonel Kurtz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one key thing to mention, too, is the day after that little girl had left that doll in Caesar's cage, the Colonel kind of makes his rounds, and he's like, where did he get this? How'd this get here? And he takes it with him. And so we get up there, and Caesar comes up on the Colonel in his bed, and coming in contact with that doll has gave him that new strain of that virus, and he is all bloody and has lost the ability to vocally speak.
Yeah, and Caesar kind of picks up his pistol. He sees Caesar kind of get his weapon. He wants Caesar to kill him.
He wants Caesar to kill him.
He has Caesar put the gun to his head. Caesar doesn't kill him, but he allows the Colonel to kind of kill himself.
Yeah, and that whole scene where Caesar's just like debating it, he's like, whether he's gonna pull the trigger or not, it's just great. The the distraught in his face about, do I do this? Do I take it this far?
Right. Now that I'm here, do I really want
do
this?
I see this through?
Do I want it this way?
Yeah.
Like this man is already he's also lost, but now he's lost to this virus. He's becoming something less than the person I was seeking.
Yeah.
I was seeking a strong person who had killed my family, and this is not the same man that I found now.
Yeah.
It's kind of where Caesar's left to kind of wrangle that.
So he just leaves the gun and he walks around, and you don't even see the actual shot. You just hear the gun go off, and the colonel's killed himself.
And by this time, the other military forces, they've launched their attack. They got attack helicopters coming in. They're launching missiles. They also the base has some kind of anti-air defenses. So there's the ground soldiers are firing. The soldiers are coming in. It's a big all-out war at that point. While outside, the apes are trying to make it across. There's a big open field, just nothing but a few rocks and this big open field out in front of the base. So they're trying to kind of scurry their way between the rocks to get across the field to get to, kind of open space where they can kind of get out of there, get to the trees and stuff. This is where we kind of see, again, they're kind of caught in the crossfire, and we've got our donkey. He's there with some guy that's on like a machine gun.
Yeah, kind of like a machine gun turret.
It's
machine
like
gun
yelling
nest.
at him, like, get the rocket launcher.
Yeah.
Get the rocket launcher, donkey.
Give me another round of ammo.
Yeah, and then you start to see with Red, the donkey, the traitorous ape, you start to see it's starting to turn in him a little bit as he's watching this guy on this like belt-fed machine gun or whatever mow down his brethren and just them getting slaughtered out in front of him. You start to see the wheels turn of like, this is not what he wanted either. Cut to Caesar, he's left the colonel's cabin. He's kind of grabbed a belt of grenades that was left up in the colonel's cabin. And you kind of see him coming around the corner in like this really kind of epic shot as he's like, you kind of see him and Red kind of lock eyes a little bit. He knows what's happening because during the battle, these two big tankers of fuel have been pierced, so there's fuel spilling out all under where Red and those other soldiers are kind of lined that wall. And you kind of see him coming around the corner, ready to chuck that grenade. And who shoots him, Todd?
It was Red shot him.
No, sir.
We got to start over here.
This is all in.
Where's the cut? We got to cut back.
This is all in. He gets shot by that dude Preacher.
Oh, the preacher. That's right.
Yeah, he comes by with the crossbow.
I was thinking about Red shooting the preacher. My bad, folks.
Yeah, no, it's Red doesn't shoot. He sees Caesar coming around the corner, and the dude with the crossbow, Preacher, the dude that's pretty good with the crossbow, he comes back and actually shoots Caesar in the side.
Yeah.
Gives him a wound in the side. And that's where you see the turn of Red. He does finally get the grenade launcher.
He does.
And he uses it
To kill Preacher.
On Preacher.
There's where I was at. My mind was ahead.
We understand.
It's usually a step ahead or a step behind.
Yeah,
folks.
this
I'm
time
sorry.
step behind. No, but yeah, he ends up blowing Preacher up with that grenade launcher, and he gets just bluntly executed right after that.
Shot in the
you
head. Yeah.
You see the guy drawing his pistol. You don't see the shot, but you cut back just in time to see the blood spray as he kind of falls over.
Yeah.
And so he gets a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for there? He gets a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for, Todd?
Red vindication.
Vindication, yes, exactly. He gets a little bit of vindication.
See, that's why I'm here.
There you go. You were a step ahead of me that time. Yeah, he gets to kind of turn and have his little moment and come back to the side of good in his last few moments and get a little bit of vindication there before his ultimate untimely kind of death. But yeah, that Caesar throwing the grenade, he finally gets back up in everything that's going on. He does chuck the grenade, blows up everybody along that wall, blows up most of the facility, and that leads to a gigantic, again, they're at the base of this very rocky, snowy mountain, so that leads to a big old avalanche.
Yeah.
And the last kind of few scenes there around the base is Caesar trying to escape the path of the avalanche, the other apes, they all manage to survive and escape by kind of climbing the trees.
Yep.
So, and it's a good way, it's a good scene with those characters. Yes, that would be how apes would probably escape with avalanches. They have the ability
to climb up to the top of the tallest tree.
They've evolved. Yes, any man man stuck there, and the avalanche takes out everybody.
When you look back down, the whole place where that base was is just white with snow.
Yeah, because at that point the attacking people had taken the base. Like after Caesar blows it, they had already went into the base. The ones inside had surrendered, and they'd kind of spotted Caesar, and then that's where it turns, and they're covered in the avalanche, and everyone is wiped out by that, all the human side except for the apes. One thing before we go on to, like, again, I think the setup here, the camp stuff, like, again, just a strong third act. Like,
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Like, all of it was so great. You get some great moments. You get, like, everything that goes on with the moments we talked about with the torture of Caesar, him standing up for the apes. We didn't really talk about it. When he first get there, the apes have kind of turned their back on Caesar. Because they feel like that he'd abandoned them and left them to go off and, like, on his own vendetta.
Right.
And, like, he kind of gets their trust back, and he kind of resumes that leadership. There's that great scene where they're all kind of looking at him, and they do that apes together strong, like, kind of symbol to him. Like, oh, that's like really good stuff. Like, again, like another strong kind of third act here. You want to kind of wrap us up with our last scene once the apes actually get to the oasis?
Oh boy, here we go. So the apes do complete their journey, and they make it to their oasis, and they're all kind of going on down, exploring their new home, and Maurice and Caesar kind of stop by underneath this tree, and are kind of sitting down, just taking a moment, and lest we forget that Caesar took that arrow to the side, which I forgot earlier, of course, folks. But that wound has been bleeding the whole time. He's practically almost bled out, and he's gone. He's pretty much sitting there dying.
Yeah, Maurice, he kind of again discovers that wound. He tells Caesar, he promises him that Cornelius will know who Caesar is and what he did for the apes. And once the apes are finally with the apes, safe in their new home, you see kind of Caesar kind of peacefully succumbing to his wounds and dying.
He passes away.
And he passes away, and like we kind of linger on that last final shot, just kind of that hopeful shot looking up into the skies. The apes have found their new home, but now they find themselves without their leader, the person that brought them there, all things considered. So it's a great last little shot to linger on, and kind of lasting little thoughts that you have after the film as we kind of close it out here. And it's like closing out the film was sad in another way. Not only did we lose Caesar, but like there's no more of these films to watch in terms of the Matt Reeves Apes films. And that in itself really made me sad. Is like I really wanted more of these films, and I want more of these films, and like I hope Kingdom and
we've got our hopes up for Kingdom.
Yeah, exactly. Like
maybe too high. We don't know
maybe too
yet.
high. I may be putting too much on it, but if it's half as good as these last two, Apes films have been, like I think it'll be worth seeing and worth your price of admission. Like, yeah. I mean, what are your thoughts here? Anything you want to kind of go over that we didn't touch on?
One thing I think we may have forgotten is down in those tunnels. There's a little scene between Maurice and the little girl, and I think she's kind of questioning. She's asking, "Is she an ape? Am I ape?" And he's like, pulls that little Nova car badge out of her pocket. And he's like, "No, you are Nova. You are Nova."
Yeah, he kind of names her because she's questioning, "Am I an ape? What am I?" kind of thing. Yeah, a great little scene between her and Maurice. I never really mentioned it when we were talking about Maurice before, I don't think, but again, the effects here I think take another notch up. Like the effects you have here, Rise was pretty good. Dawn was really great, and I think this is just building off the effects that we've seen in Dawn, like of how good they are now. Like some of those early scenes where, again, they're like in the forest, it's raining, the fur's all matted, like all that stuff looks fantastic. But just a note I had about Maurice that I never really mentioned, like he looks real all the time.
He does. I mean, he looks like he's a real orangutan that's there.
Yeah, there's sometimes, there's still parts of some of the apes and Caesar and stuff. Like there's some shots where like he looks real. Then there's some shots where like you still know obviously like he's a CGI character. And you look at Maurice anytime, it's like, that's not fucking real orangutan. Are they fucking with me? Is that really an orangutan? Like his effects are so good. He always looks so real. Like it's like almost like again, like they pulled a trick on you. It's like everybody else is not real, but we brought in this one really smart orangutan.
Right.
And he's been in this movie the whole time. One thing I had, Todd, before we go on to kind of like final thoughts and reviews and stuff, my question is this anything? Because I was kind of thinking about this film in particular and about kind of the evolution of Caesar. And through Caesar's evolution, like the kind of more Caesar has evolved, the more he's had to deal with like challenges and emotions that are like usually reserved for like humans.
True.
So as a leader of the apes now, he's burdened with like the problems of man. So like he's worried about self-preservation, opposing ideologies, betrayal, grief, anger. He's confronted with all that throughout these films, but especially all those in this film. After like kind of the loss of his wife and his son, Caesar, he's presented with a choice, like we talked about. He could stay with the apes and seek to find a way to live in peace, or to kind of like seek revenge. He chooses to kind of seek revenge, or call it revenge, call it vengeance, whatever you want. But neither are kind of feelings or motivations naturally like held by apes. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like, only when you're burdened with knowledge, only once Caesar is kind of burdened with knowledge, does he have to face those feelings. And it's like, it's, kind of the way I kind of summed it up here is like, when inheriting the intelligence of man, he shall also inherit the problems of man. And it's just like
True,
a thing
yeah.
I was thinking about, like, the more he evolves and the more intelligent he becomes, he's inherited all this stuff that comes with that knowledge, comes with that level of intelligence, is having to deal with all these things and motivations, and like I said, betrayal and grief and loss and anger and revenge and vengeance and all that stuff that, again, those are problems and things and feelings that we don't normally associate with anybody but man. So it's like, I don't know, I just found it interesting that the more he evolves, like the complexities of his life and the complexities of what he has to go through and the emotions he has to experience also evolves, and it's not always in the good way.
True.
That
definitely,
that burden of like knowledge and intelligence is what I found kind of like fascinating, as I kind of like sat there and like kind of thought about it last night, as like an overview of this series. And I think that's like a kind of at least to me, it was like kind of something I hadn't really thought about, is like the evolution he goes through. It's like, it brings the ability to, to lead others and do all this stuff, but it also brings another set of challenges that you would normally not have to experience if he did not go through everything he had to go through and not
True.
become the character that he ultimately became. So just something I thought I'd throw in there. Ready to move on to reviews, Todd?
Let's do it.
So again, we rank films on a scale from 1 to 10, starting from 1, the ranks are torture, 2 awful, 3 bad, 4 subpar, 5 mediocre, 6 decent, 7 good, 8 great, 9 amazing, and 10 masterpiece. Todd, give us your final thoughts and review score for War for the Planet of the Apes.
The only bad thing I got to say about War for the Planet of the Apes is it's the last one in this trilogy, man. I've enjoyed these 3 movies so much. I went with an 8 for Rise. I went for a 9 with Dawn, and I'm sticking with a 9 for War. This is an amazing movie, start to finish. Some of Matt Reeves' best work. Like I say, if you haven't watched any of these movies, I definitely would recommend them. Like we've touched on earlier, this is one of the better modern trilogies I think we've had in a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely super underrated. I'm right there with you. I'm going to give War for the Planet of Apes, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10, which ranks it as great. I think it's just slightly below Dawn. I still think Dawn is the peak here.
I would agree. Dawn is your better of the 3.
Yeah, we have like a kind of a little bit of a reverse Star Wars original trilogy, where it's like New Hope, Empire, down for Jedi a little bit. This is like up a little for Rise, way up for Dawn, and then barely a dip for War. You know what I mean? It's kind of the inverse of the Star Wars trilogy, in my opinion. Yeah, strong characters, fantastic effects, the culmination of a very underrated trilogy that I'm very sad that there's no more films to watch for. Like, that's the most saddening part of this, is there's no more specifically Matt Reeves ape films for me to watch. Hopefully there's other good ape films to come in the form of Kingdom. I guess we'll find out in a few weeks. But like, yes, a very underrated modern trilogy. Like, if you haven't watched these films, like you're kind of missing out.
Yeah.
As far as science fiction films, it's one of the better science fiction trilogies that there is, and they work just as good films in general.
Oh yeah,
they're fantastic films overall. You're caught up in the characters and their story and the storytelling and the visuals. Everything is top notch. We didn't really talk about music and sound design, but there's a lot of really good music again in this film, and there's a lot of those very reminiscent to the old '60s kind of vibes for the music at some point.
Yeah,
lots of drums and those kind of things.
Right.
Didn't this actually start with like the fanfare that was like 20th Century Fox like drum fanfare?
Yeah.
Kind of like tribal, like rhythmic rhythmic kind of, yeah, like
That was
just
kind of a riff on the old Fox fanfare.
yeah, exactly. Like it just kind of there's just good stuff here. Like I can't say enough good things about this trilogy. Again, check it out if you haven't. For us, it ranks very high, and I'm glad we kind of got the chance to kind of come back to these three films because they're definitely worth your time, and I'm gonna miss them, and hopefully come back to them again soon one day. So Todd, tell everyone how they can find us and get in touch with us on social media.
We are at Talc Apes on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. Talc Apes Podcast on Facebook. You can also email us at talcapespod@gmail.com.
If you enjoy the show, please consider leaving a like on the video and subscribing to our channel. Popcorn Mumbles will return. We want to thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bye guys.
See you guys.